Hello and welcome. This is The Breathing Room, a podcast about M&M, mind, nutrition, and movement. I'm Rita Date, your host. I'm a yoga and meditation coach, nutritionist, and have written 2 books on healthy eating the Indian way. If you want to cut through the wellness clutter and get information backed by science, you've come to the right place. Today, I'm so happy to welcome Dr. Malhar Ganla. He is one of the founders of Freedom from Obesity, Freedom from Diabetes. He's also runs or helps run Kilometers, which is a company here in Pune promoting protein-based products. And there's a lot to him, so we're going to find out much more about him, what he has done to help people get fit, and his journey as well. Welcome, Malhar.
Thanks, Rita.
So tell us a little bit about where you came from and how you got to where you are, your fitness journey.
Yeah, I think I grew up in a highly fitness-oriented household. Give you an example. My parents actually were always looking for some class or the other. Either they were going for, back then it was, I think, something like Zumba that they used to go for. And
for themselves?
For themselves.
Oh,
they were always
nice.
trying to be active. Both were super specialist doctors. So whatever time they would get, I think as I got older, I started spending a lot of time with Dad, going up mountains and going for swims.
You posted about that.
Yeah, so I think because of his kind of cultural overhang in the house, I realized that spending time in hobbies is not such a bad thing. You know, and he used to always tell me that don't worry, with the kind of education we will have or you will have, making money, making a living won't be as hard it is for most people. But the question is, how will you make it a life? So what kind of hobbies are you going to inculcate in yourself? So back then it just didn't make any sense. It just looked like a lot of fun, and we went to the Himalayas a few times, and looking back now I realized how much of that shaped who I was to become in the years to come. So it kind of, I went back to it every time. Initially there was a lot of academic pressure, of course, because that's how our culture is, and then once I was done with that search started again. How do you stand out in 1 billion people? That's something that intuitively all of us are always searching for. And I had a friend of mine who once told me, you look quite sleek, why don't you try running?
Oh, really?
And I started smoking a little, and the parties had started increasing, and he had come from the US, and I think about 20 years ago it wasn't so big here. And he just told me, you look like a runner, why don't you try? So I said, okay. So I ran 5K, 3 years, started running, started catching flights to run, going to Delhi half marathons, started running full marathons. And then suddenly I was like, okay, people are noticing that part about me. Kind of made sense, because initially you're little, like as Carl Jung says, your entire effort initially, say up to 40, is to create an external personality. You want the world to know you for something. So I started realizing that fitness comes naturally to me. Let's do it, let's do more of it. So profession started taking a back seat, and fitness took on more. And then I wanted to study a little, like I'm a very science driven guy, I like evidence. So I enrolled in a sports science, sports medicine course in New Zealand. I went down there, studied for a couple of years.
Okay.
And that really cemented my belief that I wasn't off on some fool's errand, because my guides there were very, very mature. They didn't want me to pursue a hobby as a, sport shouldn't be just a hobby. And having a medical background, they wanted me to pivot to teaching people who have an affliction, so diabetes, obesity, high cholesterol and all that. So when I came back, I started working with children initially. But then I realized that children are dependent souls.
Yeah,
it's the
they follow the parents.
And they kind of depend on their environment. So the school encourages it, they'll do it. If the parents prioritize it, they do it. But then eventually by 9th, 10th in our culture, sports starts to taper off. So fair enough. I mean, it's just what it is.
Yeah.
Again, you have to stand out. You have to make a living of 1 billion people. So I was very narrow with my outlook initially. I thought, I'm selling this, why aren't people buying it? But I realized that, Indians are driven by a certain sense of security, and then comes everything else. So that's fine. Education and hobbies and also. I realized where we fit in. The tragedy is we're fitting in after affliction. So I'm having to hard sell it to somebody who's now lost his health.
Yeah, it's too late. Not too late, but it's more difficult.
I'm having to keep the gun on a disease or a condition. I wish I could just sell it as a fuller life, which I think today, if you see the Bombay Marathon numbers, 30,000, 40,000, people are taking to it as a hobby.
Right.
So, but unfortunately, again, there's a lot of de-stress element there. People are stressed 6 days a week, and the 7th day they go and work out, stress the body to sort of de-stress the mind, which is not really
Not always the healthiest.
And that's why you get the, scary stuff happening.
So you had started Freedom from Obesity, which is part of Freedom from Diabetes. Now, fitness is one thing. Then how did you make the shift to tackling diabetes?
They're kind of diabetes is kind of a marriage at the back end. It's all insulin resistance and a bit. Finally, they are overeating disorders at the end of the day. So whether it's a little bit of genetic components also, but there's always going to be an environmental factor to it, and lack of activity is a huge component. So finally, our muscles are the largest consumers of sugar. So only when you have sufficient muscle, Indians as it is are thin fat. Although even if we are now becoming overweight also, but earlier we were directly going from healthy to obese.
Right.
There was no overweight phase. We remain normal weight, but metabolically obese, So just fat percent goes on rising. So we found that it's all the same. So 15, 20, 25% weight loss, hypothetically, along with say a 20% fat correction would help, put lots of these disorders into remission. So it is easy to put diabetes into remission in Indians, provided they have sufficient insulin secretion. So we find that about 75% of Indians do comfortably reverse well.
So you can reverse diabetes.
Oh yeah. Okay. See, reversal is not an option because the acceleration is inevitable. If you do nothing, you'll accelerate to complications. What medicines do is they just sort of camouflage that journey for a while. They're holding you back visibly. You feel, wow, everything's great. But at the same time, if you continue eating the same food and not doing any kind of activity, you're just accelerating at the back end. The medicines are hiding it from you. But if you're going to take the medicines and do the exercise and diet correction, there's a large percentage that really don't need a high dosage at least. So they come down to monotherapy or no therapy, which is great. And we're not saying you'll be free forever. All we're saying is
it's a journey. You have to work at it.
Buy yourself few years of medicine-free living. It's not a bad thing.
Right.
Because medicine-adjusted living, as Peter Atkins put it, it's here to stay. It's part of our natural longevity that at some phase, some of the other organ, including the brain, will require some support. So if you take medicines for factors beyond your control, it's not a bad thing. But if you know you can control some variables and go medicine free, I think it's a reasonable ask.
Yeah.
To get people to.
So you suggest that people work out at least 1 hour a day in your program. So
I'm not a time proponent of exercise.
Okay,
I'm not a time proponent. I think quality beats quantity in the world of exercise. And especially we meet a lot of people who are 30 to 60 years old. So there's a huge acceleration. When we started 10 years ago, we got all the 65-year-olds who had been diabetic for 5-10 years. And they're kind of comfortable taking a couple of metformins here and there. And slowly, we started getting 55, 50-year-olds. And in the last 10, 15 years, less about 2 years, I have seen so many 25 to 35 type 2 diabetes now.
Younger and younger.
Yeah, so there's a 15-year acceleration every 5 years. So exercise is one part of it, but it's not easy.
I know.
It's not
so
easy.
you also promote Protien. I know you've started with some people, this company called Kilobeaters, where you produce protein-based foods. So tell us about that. How important, everybody knows the importance of protein, but how do you suggest that vegetarians get protein? Are non-vegetarians stronger than vegetarians?
So I'll give you the backstory first, which is when I study, again, this has all come out of a work with thousands of diabetic patients, especially the vegetarian diabetics. They, like I said, our grandparents were typically 45 to 65 kgs in weight. Our parents went from 65 to 85. The current generation is starting at 85 and moving up to 100 plus.
Oh God.
This 10 kg or 20 kg inflation requires an adjustment of nutrition also. So even the micronutrients, B12, D3, calcium, iron, etc., you can't live on the same dose that a 45 kg human being lives. You need twice the dose at 90 kg. But nobody considers the dose. We're still writing the same adult dosage. Although most medicines are per kg per day. But who looks at that nutritionally? Now, in Indians, what happened is we are as it is carbitarians, right? We are not vegetarians or non-vegetarians. We have to have giant amounts of rice and roti with every meal. And while that's fine, where is the protein to match a 90 kg body? You're still telling me protein comes from dal, from a little bit of paneer, it comes from a little bit of, and unfortunately what's bridging the gap, or the 30 to 40 gram protein gap, is milk. Now, milk in itself was not meant to bridge that much of a gap. It can bridge about 5 grams, 10 grams. It's loaded with lactose, insulin-like growth factor, as well as it's loaded with fat. A cow, or rather a calf, consumes milk and grows 100 kgs and 3.5, 4 feet in height in 1 year. You're giving it to a fully grown adult. Are you expecting vertical growth at age 40 or horizontal growth? So the question is, at some point, humans have to realize that you can't just jump into dairy as a convenient source of protein. You need clean sources of protein, which are basically isolated protein. Now, non-veg food is that. When you have the chicken, the eggs, you're getting relatively clean protein. And when you cook it, you're rendering off a large percentage of the fat. But that doesn't happen in a dal. When you have a dal, you have 4x the carbohydrate comfortably, and you convince yourself, no, but it's protein. All I tell you is it's also protein.
Yeah, it's 80% carbs. And
I want you to reach 60 to 80 grams of protein without raising the carbohydrate bill, which is not easy. It's not easy, which is the premise of kilometers, which is it's a 20 gram serving in any of our products in the morning right away. Instead of poha, upma, so on and so forth. Every part of India has a different carbohydrate based breakfast, which is fine. But where's the protein? Again, 200 ml of milk. So
yeah, that's my next question was our breakfast. Like upma, poha has about 5-6 grams of protein.
Yeah, if you spike it with the nuts, yeah.
Yeah, so that's not enough in the morning.
It's reasonable, but it's not enough if you map it to the body size of current Indians. And then to map it, you will have 3 bowls of poha, which is the problem.
Which is, yes.
If you stuck to what your grandparents ate, which was 1 decent bowl of poha and that was the end of it, it's fine. But to map it now, at 5 o'clock, you'll open a packet of something with namkeen in it, which has nuts and salt, and you'll be like, okay, I got my nuts and protein.
So a little bit of upma with some dahi.
Again, it's coming from curds, from dairy again.
Dairy.
Nothing wrong. See, again, South Indians live on dairy, on curds, nothing wrong. But these are portion controlled.
Right.
A North Indian has much more dahi when he starts, you can't mix and match cuisines like that. I feel it's always better as you get older, your calorie intake is going to reduce because you can't tolerate so many calories anymore. Like I've seen my parents, when they were younger, they would eat 2,500, 3,000 calories. As they crossed 50, they started coming down to 2,000. And today they eat about 1,600. What has sacrificed is the carbohydrate.
Right.
They have held on to protein and fats.
Not everybody does that.
But that's the wisdom in it. Most people know your kidneys. But if you have already mucked up your kidneys because of a high carb, high diabetes, by the time you're 50, 55, your dependent becomes carbohydrate. So I'll give you an interesting puzzle that I face every day. We meet people who come to us who initially just have diabetes. Then they say, oh, all this reversal doesn't exist. They get polarized by their own physicians who say this doesn't exist. And then they go back to living their life, taking their medicines. After 2 years when they come, most of them have now also developed a renal disorder. So there's some kind of nephropathy occurring, creatinine is high. Then we start restricting the protein even more. Then the carbohydrate increases. As we restrict the protein, they start losing muscles. It's such a cycle. And then they shift to fat purely because they can't eat carbs and they can't eat protein. The fat starts to raise their cholesterol and triglyceride because they are crossing normal limits. Now they have all 3 conditions. Now we have to give them tablets for everything. Then there's blood pressure. So at the end of the day, an average Indian at 50, 55 is having about 16 tablets a day. And then there's the nutraceutical industry, which tries to bridge in its gap. So when I travel abroad, I see people in Singapore and US, Australia, their tables are filled with nutraceuticals. I mean, it's crazy, the kind of...
Keeping all doctors busy and all...
I'm just saying
nutraceuticals is a huge industry now.
It is an industry because people don't want to learn the nuts and bolts of food. Why aren't my parents having nutraceuticals? No, not a single nutraceutical, just whey protein. Because they've given up non-veg. If they were still eating non-veg, then they would still
Okay.
get their protein.
Right.
They would get their 20 grams from there. But it's a choice you make. Maybe you have an ethical, moral, spiritual transformation at some age, you let it go. It's your choice.
Yeah.
But once you make that choice,
You still have to.
you can't forget the body then.
Right.
The body didn't make that choice. It was your mind, right?
So as far as like snack goes, or even breakfast,
Yeah.
isn't like a whole food, like an apple and peanut butter, isn't that better than your like a processed product like any high protein?
The problem with the whole fruit natural thing is it can't be preserved beyond a certain time. They tend to degrade quickly. So you can't leave an apple for 3 months. You have to eat these up. Now, when you travel, it becomes very inconvenient sometimes. You're catching a flight. There are things which are difficult to do on a convenience basis between the age of 40 to 60 because these are busy years, and we have so many high performing executives who just for lack of logistical availability tend to just keep drinking cappuccinos and mochas.
Yeah.
I have not eaten on a flight in maybe 2 years. I carry my stuff. So the kilometers has an entire range which I carry with me. I don't eat junk. When I go to 5-star hotels and stay, I'm not dependent on that mad buffet breakfast. I'll have 2 eggs from there. I'll have a slice of bread with peanut butter on it. But at 11 o'clock, I make sure I have my protein. I'm not binging. So one of the classic problems with a lot of Indian culture is opportunistic eating.
Yeah.
It's in our culture. I've come here, you offered me something, I can't say no, I ate it. And this is typically Indian junk, which is the samosa and stuff like that. Bas de diya to kha liya, and then I forgot my body over there. So this kind of stuff, holding back your
You have to learn how to say no, and we have to stop offering.
But then what do you offer?
It's a cultural thing.
What do you offer?
I'll give you water, I'll give you some tea, or so. I mean, like
maybe construed as rude in some cultures.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy.
Which is why the dry fruits and to some extent like the kilometers has certain circular snacks which are low. Practically they are just no sugar. They are made with almond flour. They are made with, I think, to a large extent, whey protein. These are things which are agreed it's processed, but cultivation at a mass scale, food science is also a process. There are thousands of chemicals that have gone in there to bring that one apple to your door, to preserve it through 2 flights that it had to change. We forget all that because we didn't see it.
Yeah.
We have this assumption because it came in a packet, it's processed. But that's not true. Food science today.
Food science is gotten advanced.
Because you have to feed 7 billion
There's a reason
people.
for it. Yeah.
You have to feed 7 billion.
Yeah, that's
How
what
do you feed 7
GMO
billion?
and we have to have science to develop.
Like I had a teacher who said that wheat has been reduced in height by 3 feet simply because the breeze would blow off the crop. So they had to re-engineer it so that it becomes shorter. Otherwise, you couldn't mass scale it. Now, again, these are all great things to hear, but there may be a nutritional loss there or a shift in, my molecular properties, but they are. I'm just saying it is what it is. How do you feed 7 billion people?
Yeah.
To me, it's becoming not about 7 billion. Even if I take the ones who are diabetic and obese, if they are eating 3,000 calories a day, how do we get their macros to them on a convenient way? How do we get it to them in a cleaner way? So as health professionals, our job is not all the time to sit here and preach idealistic solutions or go get 30 grams of this and 50 grams. Where does he get it from? He's an IT engineer sitting in an air-conditioned office 12 hours a day logged in, and I'm giving him work to think about. He doesn't have mind space. We have to create tailored solutions which at the back end, it's 5 o'clock, he puts it in his Google calendar, he opens one thing, he puts it and he drinks it, that's over.
Yeah.
We have to reach that level of customization. I think one of the biggest mistakes in our industry is assumption of A, laziness on part of clients, and B, lack of intelligence. We assume that a lot of our obese or diabetics don't know or don't understand, or worse, don't care. It's not true. Everyone's running a race, man.
There's such an education out there, whether it's good or bad, or valid or not, we don't know.
There's no shortage of information. The problem is of execution.
Right.
And for sure availability of time. It's not fair to expect them to leave their work and sit down and just make food all day.
Yeah.
Because healthy diets are time consuming. I'll be honest with you, it's not easy.
Yeah.
So if you see someone who's got a 6-pack, the guy's putting a lot of time into it. It's not just about...
Yeah, there's a whole village that helps.
It takes a village to raise a man.
Yes.
It's not that simple. So, there's a lot of judgment.
What is your take on these new weight loss drugs, Ozempic,
Ozempics,
Mounjaro.
Mounjaro and semaglutide. They're good, but I attended a conference a few months ago where a lot of physicians told me that they wrote these drugs. I think there's a weight range where it's effective, and then there's a weight range where it's not really effective enough. So behavioral shift won't occur with that tablet. It will get you to a point where you can start to flex your intelligence, because till then you're a victim of your hormones or whatever the disease. But 10% weight loss can be expected. But the tragedy is, if you haven't corrected your portion size, you're going right back.
Yeah.
And this I've seen with a lot of patients. I personally have given it to a few people above 140 kgs. They come down below 140 as long as they take the 3 milligram, 7 milligram. But the minute they let go, it
I
goes
thought
right back.
they not have the
But they
ability.
have tablets and injectable.
No, but you have the your appetite goes down, right?
Yeah,
but only at
temporarily.
that time.
Yes, appetite suppressant. So it's good for that time. It triggers that fat loss, the starvation effect. Your diabetics lose a lot of muscle with it.
That's what I was going to say. They use a lot of muscle with
I've seen
Ozempic,
terrific muscle loss in diabetics, not in non-diabetics, but it's not a long-term solution as yet. It's a great cosmetic solution. Like for if you're in that industry and you need a quick correction, the whole Hollywood, Bollywood can go for it, man. No harm. Like I would happily take it if I needed, if I had that pressure in work and I just wanted to look ripped for a little while, I might take it.
Yeah.
You just can't keep taking it.
That's one thing you should not keep taking.
You can't.
Other medicines, okay. But speaking of Hollywood and Bollywood, what do we do with these random influencers? What do we do? How can we, I mean, like you said, there's an information highway and not all of it is valid and good. How do your patients come and ask you, I don't know, I saw this diet, like what can we do about that?
I think there are, to me, it's a 3-phase thing. Suppose you got diagnosed as diabetic today. The first thing you start looking for is universal truths. Is apple cider vinegar good for diabetes? So you start searching it. You saw a reel, now you're Googling all about apple cider vinegar. Then phase 2 is you will start trying it. Phase 3 is the enlightenment that this doesn't work in my case. So fasting sugar reduction. So I don't mind you listening to people trying it out, like Buddha famously said, right? Try everything. If it works for you, adopt it. If it doesn't work for you, it wasn't meant for you.
Right.
Don't start creating evidence that thing was messed up or the intentions are bad. You're wasting your time. You just realize, it's not for me. Okay. Just move on. But the problem with most people is they want a quick fix and a universal quick fix. How can one thing work for 7 billion people? You're telling me you'll turn 7 billion people onto keto? Or you'll turn them all vegan, or you'll turn them all vegetarian, or you'll turn them all non-vegetarian. You can't do that, So just have freedom of choice. But within that, health professionals have to help them make the best decision for them.
Yeah.
But to me, most decisions are secondary to the age. Because what is relevant at 40 will not be relevant at 60. The time availability, the resources, everything is different. Priorities are different. So a menopausal woman, you can't preach the same stuff you're preaching to a 25-year-old.
Right.
The motivations are only different. So I think first understanding where the person's coming from is level 1. And then customizing solution. But the problem with the health industry is, this is my solution.
Yeah, it's for you.
Now you
Everybody.
fit it into your life. And like I do yoga. Now everyone should do yoga. Agreed. But where's the time and the logistics and the hierarchy? And it's tricky.
It is.
You're leaving it to a person to do the last mile delivery. I think we have to do the last mile delivery.
Yeah, we have to as health professionals, right? So coming to yoga, we're in a yoga studio.
Yeah.
So I've read your things or listened to you, and you've said that yoga is not enough, and I agree. Walking is not enough.
I don't think anyone heard what you just said. Most people heard I said yoga's bad, walking's bad. That's all they heard.
Not enough. I didn't say you didn't say.
Yeah,
it's
you
bad.
did the politically correct thing.
So if someone has 45 minutes a day, maybe 5 days a week, what should they do?
So we at Freedom from Diabetes came up with a 3-2-1 framework. So you do 3 days of one fitness component, which may be strength, stamina, or flexibility, seasonally. So there are 4 seasons in a year. Based on where you live in the world, choose one thing to do 3 days a week. Now it may be yoga 3 days a week, say when it's very cold outside. Then when the weather is good, you might go 3 days for running outside.
Oh, that's...
You change it seasonally because you give those joints and those muscles a break. You can't just keep doing flogging the same thing all the time. So you take seasonal, you take 3 days, you have 2 days for something else. So let's say 3 days I'm doing yoga. 2 days I'm going to the gym, 1 day upper, 1 day lower. And 1 day I'm going for cardio, for example.
Okay.
That's 1 3 to 1. The other 3 to 1 might be I'm going 3 days cardio, 2 days I'm doing yoga, 1 day I'm doing strength. So this way you get it all through the year.
Okay.
And you just have an agenda every week. Oh, I haven't been to the gym this week. Oh, I haven't done yoga this week. And you have these miniaturized versions of each workout. When you have 1 hour, you go do it all. You do an upper body, lower body, chest, tricep, back, bicep, all of it. Touch all the machines. When you have 1 hour of yoga, preferably with a teacher, you have an amazing guided session. When you don't, you do 15 Surya Namaskars and get done with it, along with a few other poses that you know.
Right.
So, or using few props that you have at home. That's what you've learned, you do it. At least you've touched base. But at the other side, when you have the time, you should be able to do proper strength, proper stamina, and proper cardio. Cardio is easy. You can just go for a walk. That's why people go to that.
People think that's cardio, right?
It's not really cardio. That's what we call
Stroll.
activity. It's not exercise.
Yeah.
There's a huge difference between these two words.
You have to bring your heart rate up to a certain point to make it
You have to use the whole body.
Yeah.
Strength training primarily activates the core. Walking activates the lower body. Now again, there'll be a lot of hate on this because that's what people want to read, what they want to hear. But end of the day, all the walkers have huge bellies and we know that. But they'll say, no, it's because of the upma poha they go and eat after the walk. But that's just the way it is.
It's the way it is. And if you are eating that, you need to burn it. So
I personally believe after 40, there's no burning, there's saving.
What do you mean by that?
So that's your question on intermittent fasting.
Okay, my next question. I am a kind of a proponent of intermittent fasting only because it just makes you stop eating. I think, what you're saying is, have one bowl of upma and have something at 11 o'clock. That's easy to say, but it's hard to do. If you have these rules where, okay, I'm not touching anything, only black coffee or something until 1 p.m. or 12
so the
p.m.
eating window.
Yeah, the eating window. It's just a mindset. If I start with upma poha and then I'll come here, somebody has a birthday, you start eating a cake.
You want snack.
I mean, opportunistic eating happens. You don't stop. So that's...
Yeah, so I think intermittent fasting or IF is great for disciplining yourself. So I'm going to eat only from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. or whatever, that's my window. The rest of it I'm not going to. But I have seen too many people on both sides of the window or rather just near the ends of the window eating whatever they wanted. High oil, high sugar, high fat. Oh my God. Because you need to nourish this body with 2000 calories a day. Are you going to eat that in 8 hours? Are you going to eat that in 16 hours? That's your choice. What is doing the damage is the unnecessary snacks.
Yeah. So going back to the influencers, right? The people who are saying intermittent fasting, they don't give you the other side. You need professionals to tell you what to eat.
And again,
you just can't...
Is it going to work for 7 billion people?
That's the other thing,
Stop coming up with universal truths. There is only one God, there is only one diet. It doesn't. There are 7 billion gods and 7 billion diets because each one's got his own unique time of getting up, going to work, bowel movements, things to do. Each one's got his own little thing going, man. So why generalize? But yes, it's a great thing to bring discipline at some stage of a weight loss program where you say, okay, you're eating 2 meals a day. So which 2 meals will you eat? Indirectly, that is intermittent fasting.
Right.
I like the way of labeling meals instead of labeling windows of eating.
Okay.
So if I tell you eat 2 meals a day now, breakfast and lunch, that's it. You're cutting off the rest. Then you go to 1 meal a day. Then you go to no meals. So nomad, OMAD, TMAD. These are easier because qualitatively it's still a meal. You're still eating 2 rotis, sabji, dal and little bit of rice or whatever. It's a 500 calorie meal. End of story. And outside that, there's nothing because you're fasting. But that's possible when you know it's for a short time. You can't lifelong live on 8 hours of eating, man. I mean, and again,
like you said, it's individual.
It's periodic. In this decade of life, it might be easy for you to do it, so you'll do it for a little while. In the next decade of life, your social circle might increase again, and it's not possible to be a monk everywhere.
Yeah.
When you go traveling abroad, you don't know which window you're going to eat. So you're standing somewhere in Europe, in France, and you're looking at a cafe and you're like, oh, but this is not my window. Really? Like,
you have to enjoy life. You have to like live life, not just.
Can't be living in a window all the time.
Right.
End of the day, how do you reduce your portion size permanently? That's life.
The control.
How do you learn to eat for taste, not for volume? So the problem most of us is the dumping syndrome, right? When we get it, we'll dump it. But a lot of the American chains have trained us that way. You know, the KFC portion sizes, the McDonald's, they're all 800 calorie plus.
I know.
The cappuccinos at Starbucks are 170 ml, 180. We need 30 ml of filter coffee, man.
I know. I did a reel on that about these coffees.
But it is what it is. I have a macchiato there. It's a price to volume that we're not willing to pay because a cappuccino is that big, a macchiato is that small, and mentally charging you the same.
Right.
An espresso is even slightly smaller. So it's all about you realizing that you're paying for the quality of the coffee, not for the volume of milk. That milk costs $30 anyway. So it's very hard we have to learn to live with the fact that we're paying for less.
Yeah.
It's a mindset. In the 1960s, there was a revolution in America where the unlimited buffets came in, where you charge more and give unlimited. And that's what's happened now here. We are starting to take $6.99, $8.99 and give meals that actually two people can eat.
Yeah. No, it's horrible. All these buffets.
It's not. It is what it is. You have to learn to share.
So much food wastage. There's so much overeating. There's just, you want to try everything. You want to get your money's worth.
It's the volume. The restaurant can only afford to work at that. The rents are that high. So, I think, like I said, we can keep, demonizing any industry. Finally, what goes in your mouth is your business. So,
I disagree with that a little bit because there's a lot of marketing happening. A lot
which
of pushing.
Has a cost.
It has a cost. Like they're pushing. Like for example, there's no ads for Vada Pav or this thing on the streets. How many ads are targeted toward kids for eating cereal, to eating, So these companies are like, they are responsible.
Yeah, but
especially Americans don't have that in the US as much.
We're still just selling like cigarettes, aren't we?
Yeah. So just like tobacco, they're pushing. I mean, a lot of people in the US are eating yogurt for breakfast. So they're trying to sell cereal here. Like similar things.
It is there. I think it starts with the parents. If the parents make a sort of prioritize healthy food at some point in their life, some 5-7 year phase, the children may not do it when they're younger, but when they get to your stage or a little earlier, because children always like to outperform their parents. There's a silent competitiveness always going on. Mm-hmm. So if dad did this or mom did this, I'll do it slightly better and I'll do it earlier because I'll read all about it, watch videos on, and I'll beat them, which is fine. That's phase one of Indianness. But if you can convince them to be healthier and fitter than you in your lifetime, I think that's a huge achievement. It's not easy.
It's not easy.
But you have to set the bar that high.
Yeah, the statistics are that our next generation is going to
outlive.
Yeah.
So we are going to outlive them if they don't adopt our health practices. Because I told you the calorie and weight inflation is there. Just to give you an example, America has a calorie intake per capita of 3,400 to 3,600 per person per day. The Middle East is around 32 to around 3,000 calories. India was 1,600 when we grew up. It's now 24 to 2,600. So the calorie inflation in terms of density and portion sizes has increased. So has the disposable income. It's nobody's fault. But at the end of the day, how do you learn to now either save some calories or burn them? Because the body size has only increased by 10-15 kgs. The muscle hasn't increased at all. So you can't actually digest and metabolize those calories. They're just getting stored.
Right.
That it's a generational problem.
Yeah.
And like any developed country, we are also going to become 40-50% diabetic and obese by the time we hit the 3,000 calorie mark. And for us, it's worse because the carb fat content is much higher.
Well, you're in the right. You're right. Freedom from diabetes, guys.
Exactly.
Everybody. Please note.
It's not a happy thing. We don't.
It's
say
not a happy
happily,
thing, but it's a needed thing. I mean,
I told you, we are right now bolting the thing after the horse has kind of run away. We're still bolting the barn at that stage. I'm hoping that the horse comes back in early enough. We don't have to go running after him.
Yeah. But, I don't think you will.
But that's what we're doing now. Like, please get back in the barn. But it's just tragic that we are having. I think my lifetime will go in just firefighting. I don't think I'm going to live in a space where people are going to voluntarily follow a kind of healthy diet, exercise regimen for the sake of doing it. They're going to do it because they don't have another option, or there's a pill they can pop to solve the exercise problem. I think our lifetime is going to go just in regaining health for people.
Where do you see India in 10 years?
I see us, out of control. Like
Out of control.
the children are going to be out of control. Like I think parents have just got obsessed with wealth creation. I think we don't know what to do with success. Like we are incredibly successful now as a community, as a race, but we just don't know what to do with it. Like we don't know how to use that for sort of useful purposes in terms of socially useful purpose. And I don't mean social work. I just mean driving social entrepreneurship. I think we just keep hoarding wealth. We bought the capitalist model. So it's going to be very difficult to create a generation who doesn't do the same. So they're growing up with the same pressures. They also want to be successful financially.
But they're already, start at a good starting point. Many of them want that work-life balance, I'm hoping.
They say that, but they're still chasing the same 14-hour work days. They're being preached to it by some of our leaders today. 100 hours is a given. So, I think it's just crazy that I don't know where the next generation is. Every generation has a particular tick and a hook. For us, there was some periods we were sold a middle class lifestyle, even though none of our parents were middle class, but they kind of convinced us that, there is paucity of resources. But the next generation doesn't even know what that means.
They don't know what that means.
The difference for them is now economy class or business class. That's the only difference. And I think once you step into business class, you can't come back to economy. So this kind of upscaling is occurring very fast, but we have to upscale like the Aussies, like the Kiwis. When I studied in New Zealand, I saw them, and all their surplus money goes to hobbies. They go fishing, they go camping, they go hiking. They're such fit and Singaporeans are like that. It's just, we don't know yet what to do with our surplus income.
Yeah, I know. I don't know. We have to just get people moving.
Like I've been asked, when I used to run triathlons about 10 years ago, I was training for 100 rounds of a ground, and one uncle asked me, why are you doing this? Like, why are you torturing yourself with all this? So I said, I love it. He said, are you getting paid? I said, no. He said, then who does all this? Like, he was not wrong, because he was 75. He's from a generation where you did physical labor to make money. Today we are putting ourselves to marathons for what? Like, there's no answer to that. So I think till a generation doesn't really realize that that's part of my sanity.
I think it's a little bit, it's still a long way to go. Health is wealth is kind of hitting some people, but
I
not
think hobbies
enough.
are wealth more than health. If you have hobbies where you're working 40 hours, 50 hours a week, you have hobbies of 20 hours a week, I think that's a rounded, balanced life.
Yeah. Hobbies includes the exercise with your...
Everything.
Everything. Okay.
Ikigai stuff. You go fishing, I don't care.
Right.
Spend time with the kids. That's your choice. What do you call? But at an individual level, you should be able to be alone and not in bad company. So if you're a dopamine addict who just keeps running behind salt, oil, sugar, and of course the whole shopping thing revolution. So then you've created a nuisance for yourself. Yeah? I think we have to because there's so much affluenza today. There's so much liquidity that dopamine, as the same guy who's selling to you is tomorrow your customer also.
Right.
The economy is round. You can't expect hypocrisy saying, he should buy my product, but I won't buy his product. Or I'm holier than thou. My product is good, his is not good. Okay, he's also making a living. He's got kids to feed. So what if he's selling deep fried chips? I have jurisprudence to buy it or not. That's my choice, right?
Yeah.
So, and there is a market out there who'll buy it, but I can choose not to. So I think that victim card of saying, what do I do? It's available. Zomato, Swiggies are there. They'll always be there. There's always someone selling something.
You can't blame the company. Those, you have to...
They are the messengers.
Yeah.
The message is something else. So let's not shoot the messenger, man. I think,
10 years ago, I wrote on this about, cook at home, but obviously it's... not really.
It's not easy.
It's not easy.
Today, working women have,
the burden should not be on the woman.
It's not fair to expect that. I think even we have maids at home. My wife just, I watch her. What she realized is she can't cook every meal. But we kind of keep nudging the maid to put less oil, less salt, and less sugar. So the SOS, as it's called, we always nudge her.
Oh, SOS.
Yeah.
Okay.
So salt, oil, sugar, just little bit less.
Okay.
So if she can hold, and she gets trained in the house at least. At her house, to meet the calorie needs of her kids, she will use more oil, because that's how they do it. And they cook lesser volume than we do. We have more salads, we have more expensive stuff.
Right.
We don't need so much oil and sugar. So even if you're making a dessert, can be made on 1/4 the sugar. But I think
It's a training. Like
the last mile delivery, somebody has to control, so it takes time.
Yeah.
But these shifts can come, And
Tell me about your typical day. You're a triathlete. So what is your typical day like or week like? Like how do you train? And
again, seasonal, but if you see in the winters, I'll probably, I love the cold swims. I love the ice cold swims. So they are great metabolically. Also, they accelerate help the thyroid and stuff. So I'll do my 100 lap swims maybe thrice a week. Then I'll have gym twice a week. And more than just running, I love hiking. So in the cold weather, I hike a lot. In the monsoons, I hike all the time. And wherever I travel, I look for opportunities. I'm going to Indore tomorrow. It'll be a 50K, 100K bike ride again. So it's just what I've realized is once you have the appetite for long duration exercise, whether it's yoga, whether it's strength, whether it's stamina, you're fine.
Okay.
You need to build an appetite.
You have to build an appetite. Yeah.
And also for fasting. Once you get older, what we shift at Freedom from Diabetes from intermittent fasting, we have shifted to prolonged fasting. Because just having short periods of discipline is no use. But prolonged fasting is where the real nirvana lies.
Yeah, I heard that. 72-hour fast.
So you need to go at least beyond 48. Once you cross 48, you start getting into ketosis and frequently. So at least once a month, if you can go into 48. Okay. That keeps the visceral fat off. For me, of course, it's because of the sheer duration of training that I'm putting in. Again, it's the same effect. I'm always in sort of, it's not nutritional ketosis, it's more training ketosis. But for other people who can't train at that volume, no harm.
So you can, even as an athlete, you can do this fast? You can.
No, it's very hard.
It's hard.
It's hard. My muscular hunger is very different from, basic insulin-driven hunger. Right. So it's very hard.
Basically for your
and I'm always in a deficit.
Patients,
so if I'm looking at 3,000, my BMR is around 3,500, 4,000. So it's very easy to undereat that. But for someone whose metabolic rate is 1,800, undereating that, it's hard. So then they have to fast only.
Okay.
So, for me, if I'm 4,000, I can just eat 3,000 up. It's already a huge deficit.
Okay.
But for women, typically above 45, 50, they just have to learn to fast, come to one meal a day. Yeah. It's not hard, but it's hard when you start training. When you exercise, you'll have to eat.
So should you eat, or should you fast, or
you
should you
both,
exercise?
From time to time.
Time to time.
Again, seasonal. So in a week, you can do both. I think exercising every day is very overrated. You don't need to do it.
Okay.
You don't need to do it. I think everything is weekly cumulative. I always give the metaphor of systematic investment in a mutual fund. If you put $100 a day, that's 700 a month. Sorry, 700 a week.
Yeah.
Is that really going to achieve anything? Is that sufficient for you to retire on? It's not going to cut it.
Right.
But at the same time, if you put $10,000, say twice a week, now that's sufficient volume. That amount of investment, if done over 50 weeks, we're talking an incredible corpus. Exercise is a lot like that. Fasting is a lot like that. Every day counting your macros, every day doing 30 minutes of exercise, yes. But that once or twice a week of mega investment, which is I didn't eat for 48 hours, 4,000 calories of deficit. I did a 1.5 hour cardio, it's a 600 calorie burn. That's 5,000 calories that week. Instead of penny pinching all the time saying, oh, this week I had a 450 calorie deficit. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So at one end, you save calories rather than trying to burn them all the time. So the fasting saves you. It just saves you, like, even if your metabolic rate is say 1,800, that's 3,600 over 2 days.
Right.
Is that easier, or is it doing 3,600 of exercise easier?
Well, this is good advice, good tips.
You have to try.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it's an appetite. Fasting needs an appetite to be built. Exercise is an appetite that has to be built.
Yeah.
And for that, you have to see purpose. It's part of your physical ikigai. Problem with people is they want something romantic to happen. Like, there should be butterflies, in your stomach when you see this stuff. It's not going to happen. It's hard physical labor.
Yeah. It's a lot of work. But you have to do it.
Initially, it's transactional. If I do this, I'll get my sugars will come down. If I do this, I'll lose weight. But when you get down beyond that, it comes into an existential. Like for me, it's just existential. It drives my creativity. It fills my optimism. I'm a better human being for it. I don't do it so that I can burn calories. If I want to lose a few, little weight, I'll just couple of days of skipping dinners.
Yeah, you seem to have a really good control on your food.
No, again, it's an appetite, right?
Yeah.
It then comes down to just rationality and this. I just don't do the wrong thing, because the most important thing that your viewers should remember is diet decides weight and exercise decides shape. So if you want to change your shape, you go work out all you want. You want to change your weight, then you have to learn to eat less. Now, either you keep doing this penny pinching by macros and quantitatives, or you just go cold turkey on the carbs, which how long will you go for? The best thing to do is just throw in a couple of fasts a week.
So one question I had was, you're talking about age and different activities, seasonal, etc., etc. I know so many 40 and 50-year-olds who have passed away with a heart attack when they're exercising. They thought they were fit, but either on the mountain, or one was on a tennis court, one was on a golf course. I mean, many. So unfortunately, some I knew pretty well. What is your take on this, and what do you tell people to look out for? Or
Yeah, I think it's interesting to me. First, you have to backtrack. I think they lived that long because of the fact that they were going to the gym. So you have to invert the argument first of all. Had they not been working out, they probably wouldn't have made it that far, because they may have had a particular set of cardiac stuff which probably was predicating them to a heart attack. And they could have had one at 30, but the fact they had one at 48 was because of the active lifestyle they had, firstly. Secondly, I think the biggest problem with 40 to 60 is the time crunch. So people try to do a lot in a very little amount of time. They don't realize the impact on the body. They suddenly have 1 hour, so they go and start running full speed on a treadmill. This is not necessary. And the most critical thing is there's a huge difference between rest for the sake of rest and I'm going to go out for a break where I'm going to eat a gazillion calories and get drunk at age 45 and call it rest. You're only resting mentally. Physically, you're not resting. Similarly, when people get into modes of workout, they just go full power into workouts. Like, they never have rest cycles. Like, something we actively promote at Freedom from Diabetes is, we tell people, especially working executives, it is the decision making that tires you. So take one day where you're not making a decision. Like, take a Friday. Like, we do that actively. Pramod and me will go for a yoga class. We'll have a massage guy come home. He'll just do till about 4 p.m. There is no active decision making. And that lowers the cortisol levels, the adrenaline, the whole brain is just quiet. And after 40, this is as critical as running up that hill on Sunday. So, just as we lower our insulin levels with the diet and the carbs, you can lower your cortisol levels, you can lower your brain temperature. Just calm down.
This is a good tip, very, very good tip.
But the active rest, active rest is not something. We always think that rest is something you do. Rest is pure rest. I'm meditating right now. I'm going to be in a single thought. That's not rest. You're stressed that you're unable to meditate. Because we are such performance animals, we have been conditioned that everything has to be, there are goals in every domain, be it meditation, be it fitness. I think it's just good to fit in 50 to 60 days in a year, where you're not binge eating your way or just dopamine or buying stuff, but you're just, taking it easy.
Great. That's good advice. Everyone slow down, take that time.
But structured.
Not
unstructured, forced. That, you had this problem, you had acidity, so you had to take a pill and then sit at home. No. Or you're not getting sleep, so I'm popping Miloset and then sleeping. That's not, I don't like forced rest. This is structured, planned. And in when you get to the athlete world, they're rest cycles. So a Virat Kohli will go for a series, come back, and you won't see him for a month. He is on a rest cycle. So athletes have train and rest.
Right.
Recreational athletes only train. In fact, recreational athletes train and work. So they are always pushing the ball up the hill.
Wow, I didn't see it that way.
We have to learn to build rest cycles. I have learned the hard way myself, because it's a hedonic treadmill. We're always chasing some mythical goals, and you'll always see a reel of somebody running longer distances. So that madness is always there. But how do you somehow have an autocorrect where, Fridays are my rest day. I do nothing. I may train 5 days a week, and like especially when I travel, when I go abroad or when I'm flying, whenever I come back, my body's in a stress situation. After 40, I've noticed all the cabs that you have to catch, and so many, when you're catching flights, you're permanently, your gut is completely disturbed. And the first thing you come back and do is you start running. You overload it. Why? Because you have to get your dopamine or your endorphins. I found that day when I come back, for the next 3 days, I don't train. I let my my gut heal.
And the butt.
And the butt.
Yeah.
Butt just sits in a chair, lies in a bed, doesn't eat junk, gets the gut microbiome stable, gets the inflammation, acidity levels down, and then start training. But it's very difficult.
Very good.
Very hard. Very hard. Hard wiring is there.
You think that you missed that time, you just traveled for 3 days, you need to get back on. But
you miss something else. Oh, I have to do that.
Yeah.
I have to do this. Yeah, I think we're culturally not being able to chill. That word chill has just disappeared.
Our chill is going out with the friends and having a beer, or like that has become our chill.
Yeah, you need entertainment.
Yeah, I mean, you can do that, but you need this as well. So Malhar, you have given us an amazing information, and so happy that I got you in here.
Thank you.
And we'll where can people find you? Please tell.
I think Instagram's good. I think I do respond on Instagram quite quickly, but LinkedIn is my favorite because somehow we get a lot of corporate conversations going there. So yeah, if you want to find me, LinkedIn message is good.
I'll put his handles in the show notes.
Bio, yeah.
So you can look him up. Look up Freedom from Diabetes, Freedom from Obesity.
Yeah,
it's really they're great programs. And again, thank you so much.
Good news, I'm starting a cafe.
Oh yes, please tell us about that.
Yeah, tucked away, which is with an amazing chef called Rita Date in Koregaon Park in Pune. So it's our first one, and we're looking to, one of the sort of plans that I sort of had this premonition sometime in March. I said, I want to start a place where I go to a lot of coffee shops. That's my chill thing. So I said, I want to create a space where more people can come and chill and just chat and beef. And I found coffee shops quite cool, but then the food was becoming too bakery-ish.
Yeah.
So we kind of pivoted more towards the salady side of things.
Okay.
As well as, again, little more protein and all, but lots of smoothies available. So you don't have to go there and drink coffee all the time. So that was one idea. And the second was, there's a lot of 45 to 55-year-olds from the tech sector, IT, coming back to India. They want to do things, but they don't want the pressure of growth and all that. And it was so interesting to see, we got so many franchise inquiries. So we said, okay, if people are genuinely keen, just another chill space. It's not a rat race. You just open, you sit down. Like for me, it's practically going to be like that. I'll just go there, meet people, have a coffee or two. And I'll probably be releasing my book this year. And that's it. Like nothing, no mega goals.
Wonderful.
So that's what it is. Thanks a lot for having me.
Thank you. And do find all the information in the show notes and look him up.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, cool.